Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's Roshan Mohammed Salih here, the editor of Five Pillars. And this is the big picture. We've taken a bit of a break over the last couple of weeks. I had promised to do the show every week, but I've been a bit busy traveling across the UK, especially attending the Shukri Abdi inquest up in Rochdale near Manchester. And that's the reason I apologize to you viewers. That's the reason why I haven't done the show for a few weeks. But we're back with a bang today, and we're going to be talking about a subject which is very dear to my heart, and that is the situation, the worrying situation in Sri Lanka. There's a very troubling story emerging in Sri Lanka. In fact, it's been going on for a few years, and it's been amplified perhaps by the COVID-19 crisis. Basically, the government of Sri Lanka, I believe, is the only government in the whole world to decide to cremate COVID-19 victims or make it mandatory. Now, obviously, this doesn't just affect Hindus and Buddhists, it also affects Muslims who are aggrieved and up in arms and perturbed by the fact that their recently deceased relatives are being burnt, are being cremated. And obviously, we know that cremation is prohibited. It is haram in Islam. Islam prizes the human body, and the act of cremation, the act of burning in death, is considered to be a sacrilege and something which goes against the dignity of the human body. Now, I'll just do a little disclaimer because I'm not sure. I know that some of you guys will know this, but I'm half Sri Lankan. I was born in Colombo. I was born in Sri Lanka. My father, who is now deceased, was Sri Lankan. My mother lived in Sri Lanka for about 20 years, I believe. I spent my very early years in Sri Lanka before coming to the UK as a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. I went back many times for holidays. I even spent 6 months there in school when I was about 11 years old. I haven't been to Sri Lanka for about 6 years now, but it is a place where I still have many, many relatives, and I keep in touch with my cousins, especially over there, who are telling me about this heartbreaking situation. So we're going to tackle one topic today. Why is Sri Lanka cremating Muslims? What effect is this having on the Muslim community in Sri Lanka? And what can be done about it? And we've got some cracking guests on the show today. One who will be shortly joining us from Colombo, I believe, an ex-minister, an ex-MP, a very prominent Sri Lankan Muslim. And we'll also be joined a little bit later on in the show by a Sri Lankan Muslim imam who's living here in the UK. But before we go to our first guest, I know that there is a sizable Sri Lankan diaspora here in the UK. And I know that it's a country that is familiar to many Britons because a lot of us go on holiday there. You know, even if we don't have that immediate connection with the country, we go on holiday there because it's such a beautiful country, fantastic beaches, panoramic mountain scenery, history going back 3,000 years. But let's have a few kind of facts and figures about Sri Lanka before we dive into the topic. So as you can see on this map, which I've just mocked up, Sri Lanka is on the south, to the south of India, very near the equator. It has 22 million people, I believe. The majority, the 70%, I think, are Buddhists who belong to the Sinhalese or Sinhalese community. Around 12% are Tamil, and they are mainly Hindus. And about 10%, I think, are Muslims. But that translates to about 2 million people. So it is a huge chunk of the population. Muslims trace their ancestry to Yemen, mainly, I think. Certainly my family does, but also perhaps Southeast Asia. The Muslim community, I think, is a mixture, I think it's fair to say, of quite prosperous merchants, but also some very, very poor people indeed. The civil war ended in Sri Lanka in 2009. And since then, I think it's fair to say that the country has taken a little bit of a Buddhist nationalist slant. Perhaps I can describe it that way. And the Muslim community seem to be in the crosshairs of the nationalist government in Colombo. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, who is Ali Zahir Maulana. Assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. It could have been better, but you know.
Yes, I know. We'll get into that very shortly. Let me introduce you first to our audience. So Ali Zahir Maulana is a former Sri Lankan MP and diplomat. I believe he was stationed in the United States for many years at the Sri Lankan embassy there. He most recently represented the Sri Lankan Muslim Congress as an MP in the Batticaloa district, which is to the east on the east coast of Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Yes, of
so I'm going to start off actually by your latest tweet, because I just saw it about 20 minutes ago, and you posted a picture of this child. Let's get his picture up. I think it's a male. Tell me about what happened to this baby.
I'm really, I'm really sad to say, brother, this little baby, 20 days old, and the father, mother, they all were tested negative on the PCR test. But this 20 days old child, when she died, now they just do a random check by using this antigen instrument, and they say it's positive, and they had taken for cremation, despite the mother was crying, and they were pleading that their family. Even I was asking, what is the crime this little child has done for them to do this kind of cruel act? This is the plight we are facing right now, brother. Allah must safeguard all of us. And, as you know about Sri Lanka. You have a great background of Sri Lanka. And we are very peaceful people, the Muslims of Sri Lanka. They have been living very peacefully, coexisting peacefully with everybody. Even whenever there were challenges for the country's sovereignty, we stood by. And such patriotic people we are. So why we will have to go through this kind of situation? Right from the beginning, in the backdrop of COVID-19 situation, I must tell you, in the month of March, later part of March, on 30th, the first person, Brother Jamaldeen from Nigambu, when he passed away, they said he's COVID, and this person has to be cremated. And they were forcefully telling the family members, we are going to cremate. But in this time, we are having a circular of Sri Lankan government, health authority, that on the guidelines they received from WHO on how to handle the COVID-19 disease, it's clearly say they can be cremated or buried, can be buried.
Yes, and brother, you launched, or you were involved in a case recently in the Supreme Court. I think 11 or 12 families, not all Muslims, some Christians as well, I think, brought the case saying that we should have the right to bury. But that case was rejected by the Sri Lankan Supreme Court. So cremations will continue. What were their grounds to reject this? Because as you said, the World Health Organization, the UN, has said that it is okay to bury. It's not going to pollute the groundwater or lead to anything negative whatsoever. So Sri Lanka is going against that scientific advice.
There's no evidence whatsoever, any scientific evidence, despite all being through all our attorneys in the courts very beautifully, articulatedly, they were deliberating, they were talking about it, and with all those hearing on Monday and Tuesday evening, out of 3 judges, 2 against 1, they didn't want to proceed the case. And whatsoever,
What were the reasons they gave for rejecting?
They haven't given any reasons. They haven't given any reason. So this is very arbitrary. This is how things are happening. This is a kind of an infringement on our religious right. Our people are very sad, disheartened, and this is how our ultimate faith was there. Some or other, this Supreme Court will give us a judgment, and we will be educated towards our plead. But
paint a picture for me.
Yes.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic started in Sri Lanka, how many Muslim families has this affected? What is the Muslim community feeling at the moment?
Now, as far as I know, until yesterday, there are 144 deaths. Out of that, 82 Muslims bodies, more than 70 have been already cremated. Rest of the bodies are still lying in the mortuary, because we have come to the extent, these people, the health authorities are asking money from this bereaved family, asking 56,000. They're asking for the coffin, 46,000, another 10,000 for the cremation charges. So this is how they are claiming. So this is almost equivalent to 300 pounds. So,
wow, and obviously that is a huge amount of money in Sri Lanka, isn't it?
Yes. So this is, now our people, even though we have money, some people have money, some people are poor background, but when our burial take place, whether he is from a royal family or a normal family, simple burial we give. Alhamdulillah, everybody gathered together is a farlu kifaya. We give a very dignified manner. We give a burial for our brothers or sisters. So this has been a practice. Now, this is a sin for us to do cremation. Now they're asking to cremate, to burn our loved ones. They're asking money from us. To shoot us, we are giving money to buy bullets like. So now this is the situation. Our people don't want to do that. They said, although they are claiming this is our loved ones, if you can give us, even you can bring the body carefully and we can do the burial.
Yeah.
If you are going to allow, that's fine. But for this, we can't give money like, there are now people are protesting. They don't want to. But
yeah, so basically, if I understand you correctly, brother, Muslim bodies are piling up in morgues now, unburied, uncremated. They're literally piling up in morgues because Muslim families refuse to go along with this.
Yes. Now, not only, but after that, President has given an order that on government money, we'll do the cremation. Now, it's not, this is what I'm saying. It's very arbitrary manner they are doing it. Not we are asking on a humanitarian grounds to understand and also allow us to practice our religious right.
Yeah. But what is it like to be a Muslim in Sri Lanka these days? Is this pure discrimination, pure Islamophobia?
I must say, brother, way back from 2014, some kind of attitude has started, after, the local 30 years war situation. After that was over, then the majority community, some political groups they initiated some kind of hatred towards minorities, especially towards Muslims, and for certain political gains, they started harassing Muslims, and they started spreading all kinds of rumors against Muslims. Our practices, even one time they said in the Muslim normal restaurant, they call tea boutiques, hotel. Even when they make some meals like kosurati, you might be familiar with that. Even the Muslims place, everybody comes, they ask more. Even there's a lot of Sinhalese people patronize. But for these people started not to patronize Muslim hotels, Muslim shops, not business institutions, protest. And also for that, they have fabricated a story that, that in Kothuroti, we are putting some kind of a pill, which can be detrimental for health issues. And when they conceive, people won't be, what do you call that? Reproduce. And that kind of, there was
basically Muslims are trying to, the rumor is that Muslims are trying to kind of sterilize
you people who the
won't reproduce.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm no historian, Brother Ali, but
the majority community like this, with all kind of fabricated stories. So unfortunately, even the educated people didn't come out to say there won't be any truth. Obviously, there is no reason whatsoever for them to suspect Muslims. We have been part and parcel of the Sri Lankan culture, heritage, and we haven't, even with all this kind of situation, we are just pleading the government, people, very peaceful manner. But we are not there, although they are provoking us, but very peaceful manner, with a lot of sabur, lot of patience.
Is this anti-Muslim incitement? Is it? I mean, I understand that there are certain right-wing groups, some certain Buddhist monks who are instigating it. There are certain TV channels. Some say also this is state-backed. What is your view?
This is something, unfortunately, we respect the religious leaders, the clergies, and whatsoever. We never had any issues. But later on, there are politically motivated elements, grouping, and they have been trying to influence certain political leaders. So some of them on they wear the garb and they come and talk a very hatred manner, hatred speeches, inciting some youngsters against the Muslim community. You see, even now with the COVID situation, you all are wearing masks. But those days, our young ladies, when they wearing masks or even with their clothing, when they go, very decent manner, they started complaining about it. Making, they were ridiculing all our matters. So this is how they have been disturbing, and and also the government also came to power on the same line. They were against Muslims, and this kind of prejudice. They have been doing propaganda, and finally they incited the majority community, and they wanted only on majority community votes the government to be formed.
Yeah, so there's this obviously, just for the benefit of the viewers, Sri Lanka is a very important country for Buddhism. There's the famous Temple of the Tooth in Kandy, where the Buddha's tooth relic is supposed to be located. It is the center of Theravada Buddhism, which is one of the the main kind of branches of Buddhism, perhaps a more conservative, politically orientated Buddhism than the kind of Buddhism you'd find in, I don't know, China or elsewhere. But I saw also, you're a very prolific tweeter, and I do encourage our viewers to follow you on Twitter. Inshallah, we'll share your Twitter handle a little bit later. But I noticed that you've resigned recently from the Sri Lankan Muslim Congress because you feel that, in a way, perhaps they're not acting as enough of an opposition to this government, and they've empowered this government. Tell me about that.
Unfortunately, I've been a member of Parliament, 2015 Parliament, representing Muslim Congress for Batticaloa district. And during that time also, we have so many political issues. When we were in government, and the Prime Minister was Ranil Wickremesinghe, and during that time, there was certain issues came up on constitutional matter. 52 days, we had to, all of a sudden, the president, Parliament to be dissolved, and we had to go to courts at that time. But at that time, I must say, 19 amendment was there. And when we went to the courts, and we got the order that Parliament, President doesn't have a power to dissolve the Parliament until 4.5 years is completed. So that extent, the judicial system was independent. Now you see, now they have passed the 20th Amendment in this Parliament, for which our Sri Lankan Muslim Congress members, there are 5 members, out of them 4 members have voted, and without any kind of a collective decision. And the leader of the party did vote, then the rest of the members have voted to pass 20th Amendment, which are given, absolute power, executive power to the president. And all these independent commissions now they don't have that much of independence.
So basically, just to summarize for the viewers, so that effectively, this is a some would say a kind of a government which has enacted anti-Muslim policies, and there are certain MPs, Muslim MPs in Parliament, who have effectively empowered that government. My final question to you, brother, is about what can Sri Lankan Muslims do about this? Are they absolutely powerless? It seems to me that they are to a certain extent. And in that case, what can Muslims outside of Sri Lanka do? Is the only thing that we can actually do is to highlight this issue, constantly highlight and amplify this issue?
No, we are living in a digital world right now. And most of our tweets and messages, now it's reaching out people. This is when 193 countries are practicing WHO guidelines. Now, in your part of the world, when there are so many bodies where then there was a spike, even the mass barrier were given. So to that extent. So out of all these burial, there were no evidence at all scientifically proved that underground water, through that this virus can be contaminated. No evidence whatsoever. But here, why? So the prejudice. So this is the clear cut. The little baby, 20 days old baby, is being cremated right now. So 90-year-old man who have been taking treatment, clinical card, everything is there. Regularly, they are going to the hospital every week. Now, he passed away. Now, they are saying he is COVID and cremating. So this is the kind of a situation is there. So this has to be, even here in Sri Lanka now, after the court's order has come like that, and we have now very collective manner. Still, we are with a lot of patience. We are even still asking even the politician, whoever, even although I didn't agree with this politician, but still go and give some pressure. Talk to the Prime Minister, talk to the President, and make sure, even talk to the opposition leaders. Opposition leader himself raised this matter in parliament in favor of burial. And so this is the present situation. We are even trying to meet the religious leaders, Buddhist monks, because we had to educate them. There are a lot of misinformation.
Yeah,
Because,
sure.
these are matters to be cleared.
Okay.
So this is where, we have to have very collective effort have to be done. So this is very important. No.
Thank you so much for your time, Brother Ali Zahir Maulana. I pray that Allah eases your burden in Sri Lanka. It really pains me to see this happen. I can just imagine, or I can't really imagine the suffering of loved ones who have to see their close relatives depart in such an undignified way. So may Allah ease your burden, inshallah.
Thank you, inshallah. Thank you for having in your program. And so make dua. And inshallah, let's hope and pray. And still we are pleading, and we are not confrontational manner, and very scientific way, with all the reasons. We are trying our level best to get this burial matter accepted, inshallah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, that was Ali Zahir Maulana, a former Sri Lankan MP, very recently Sri Lankan MP, and a former diplomat as well. He was posted in the United States in the Sri Lankan embassy. I do have another guest online, Sheikh Mohammed Ismail, who will be joining us in a few minutes. But you have been leaving lots of comments, so I feel duty-bound to go through at least some of those comments before I get my second guest on, inshallah. So Muslim says, Sri Lanka's Buddhist right wing have always hated the Muslim minority in the country. So not surprised they are following the Burma model. Yeah, Muslims are being, kind of targeted in Myanmar. That was cruel. I think that's in reference to the 20-day-old baby who was cremated. HNK says, what's the answer? Is it some sort of burial land shortage? May Allah give the Sri Lankans safety and steadfastness. Muhammad say, how cruel Sri Lankan authorities cremated 20 days old baby. My heart is broken. Sabina says, heartbreaking. Those responsible for this baby's cremation should hear her cries when they go to sleep every night. AE says the answer is revolution. That's what they need to do. The UN is useless. We should see it in the invasion of Iraq, Afghanistan, let alone the cases of Burma, Kashmir. We have to leave this to the UN. The UN, by the way, has written to the Sri Lankan authorities, telling them, pleading with them to allow burials, because burials are completely safe. That is the World Health Organization advice. Cremations and burials are completely safe, and they will not spread COVID. Mohammed says Sri Lanka cremated 19 unclaimed bodies of COVID-19 victims today, including the 20 days old infant. Sabina, again, ridiculous. How can they be forced to pay for cremation when Muslims don't want to do it? Rifki says this is Sri Lankan government planning. Kuresha says after cremating, death in Sri Lanka has increased. And we have many, many more comments. Perhaps I'll try and read a few more out before I get the brother on. In fact, I've already read those comments out. So a few more new comments. Perhaps I can just go through before we finish. Fizza says, there is no other country to pass such a law, and this may be an act of religious discrimination, and the rulers on their way out in places such as Saudi and Iran have no legal or moral standing. Mohammed says that the death certificate is in question for many people, even legal personnel questioning, will they issue death certificates to people who refuse to claim bodies? Abdulaziz says this is provocative and incriminating the rights of the descendants of minority communities, their fundamental rights for the sake of political benefits and gains. May Allah Almighty bless and protect every soul of this global earth from every disaster and calamity and disease. In fact, especially from this kind of agonizing crime against humanity and reality. My prayers and blessings. Okay, and perhaps one or two more, because I don't want to keep my guests waiting any longer. This is an incitement to provocation, systematically grafted crimes against fundamental rights and religious beliefs, principles, and values to gain political benefits. Okay, let me introduce my second guest now. Let's get him on screen. Sheikh Mohammed Ismail. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, brother?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullahu khairan for having me here.
Nice to speak to you. I know that we've known each other for a long time, I guess. So but our paths have never crossed. We've never met. So I'm glad to be speaking to you face to face at last. Let me introduce you, Sheikh, before we start our conversation. I think you're joining us from Leicester. Is that correct?
Yes, I am from Leicester now.
Yes, but you're originally from Kandy, which is in the hill country, which is Sri Lanka's second city, I guess. A really beautiful place with a huge lake in the middle and surrounded by mountains and a beautiful climate, and just a wonderful place that I encourage people to visit. So Sheikh Mohammed Ismail is the director of the Al Bayan Arabic Foundation, which teaches Arabic, Quran, and Islamic studies in Leicester. And I believe, Sheikh, that you're also one of the organizers of a protest which will take place in London outside the Sri Lankan High Commission on Saturday. Tell me about that protest.
Alhamdulillah, subhanallah. As your guest, I was listening to him. Alhamdulillah, I met him several times. And one of the things I want to mention, since the government introduced this forced cremation, many people in Sri Lanka and also the diaspora team, they worked very, very hard to stop this cremation. And I think many lawyers, included many academics, worked hard. But unfortunately, myself and everybody hoped only one thing from the court and the appeal court, maybe we will get a positive answer. Unfortunately, the court, the 1st of December, they dismiss all 11 cases. They don't want to listen to the cases. And some experts mentioned, even if they listen to the cases, they don't have the solid points to win against the Muslims. And so many lawyers, I think almost 30 lawyers, including minority Hindus and Christian and Buddhist lawyers, they came on behalf of Muslim community, and they were prepared. They were ready since May 2020 till now. They had many months to prepare, but the government, they decided, as your guest mentioned, there is a power. They want to keep the, I think, a vote bank until the next election, because they already came to power with one phrase, one country, one law. Mm-hmm. And this is the phrase, and came to the Sinhalese Buddhist community. Yes, we need to come to the position, we control everything, and they want to say, like, we are the only one nation belongs to this country. This is very clearly, they mentioned several positions. We are the only nation. But
Sri Lanka is, their position is Sri Lanka is a Buddhist Sinhalese nation, and no one else basically is welcome. Christians, Muslims, Hindus, no one else is welcome. It's straightforward Buddhist nationalism of a very aggressive kind. Yeah,
as you mentioned, this is the word I want to use also. Buddhist nationalism, it is in the peak. And if you come to the Sri Lankan history, last 2009, and I think LTTE was defeated. After 2009, LTTE was defeated. Many experts mentioned. This is
just for the viewers who are not familiar with Sri Lanka. So LTTE is the Tamil Tigers. So basically, they're the Tamil minority who had a state in the north and the east of the country for a while. They're Hindu by religion, by and large, and they fought a war for many years, for 20, 30 years, against the Sri Lankan government, which is obviously a Sinhalese Buddhist government. The Muslims, they got caught in the middle. I think the LTTT, the Tamil Tigers, committed lots of atrocities against the Muslims in the east of the country. But generally the Muslims were kind of neutral in that war, or they didn't anger either side. But since the end of that war, The target for the Buddhist nationalists used to be the Hindu Tamils, but now it's the Sri Lankan Muslims.
Yes, and also the global climate was very suited for them, because the global climate was anti-Islam and also Islamophobia. And they use this phrase and everything. The words which is we familiar in the Western world, ISIS, radicalization, extremism, these words, and frequently used in Sri Lankan old media. And I am from Sri Lanka. I lived all my life in Sri Lanka. Still, I have the passport, Sri Lankan passport, even though I'm living here. And we never know any Sri Lankan Muslim joined with extremist group or anything. And I need to mention like 2019.
Yeah, the Easter bombings, because obviously the Easter bombings took place last year.
Yes.
Obviously, Muslims were blamed for that. A group affiliated to ISIS was blamed for that. So just playing devil's advocate for a second here, because I'm a journalist and I should do this. Is it understandable to a certain extent why there's this suspicion of Muslims in Sri Lanka now?
Yes, and unfortunately, and I want to say, and if there is a suspicion, what is the way to, take the suspicion out? Someone come out and speak the truth. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, the educated people, Muslim side, and also even the Buddhist side, not came with a solid foundation to bring the evidence to the Buddhist community. This is false claim. Even like now, there is a two side. One Muslim side is they are fearing to open their mouth. That's one side. That is wanted by the government. The second side, and they are the suppressing people. And unfortunately now, we can feel the hand is upper hand from the government side, and Muslims, even a small tweet, even a small Facebook sharing, they're afraid. And that is the element. It is our responsibility, those people who are living abroad, we decided we need to speak out.
Yes.
And this is the last moment. This is the last, like a tool we have. So we are not against what is called the Buddhist people, or we are not against the government itself. But there are some elements of extreme Buddhist nationalist. These waves are taken by the government. We are asking, this is better for the Sri Lankan, not only Muslim community, Hindu community, especially for Sinhalese community. I want to tell you this thing. Sinhalese community, 70% of the population. They are the people more suffering in this situation. The government want to hide the failure of the economic system and also failure of controlling the pandemic of COVID. Even this is second second wave came. They don't know how to control.
Brother, but I want to ask you some of these wider questions about how did we get here in Sri Lanka? But first, I want you to plug the protests, because you are protesting outside the Sri Lankan High Commission. We have many people watching here now. Tell them, and inshallah, some people can come as well. When is it happening? What's the protest going to be about? Give me all the details, please.
Yes. First of all, the stop forced cremation. That is our message from the protest. Protest going to be Saturday, 12th of December, the next Saturday, between 12 and 4 o'clock in front of Sri Lankan High Commission.
So this is a few days' time?
Yeah, a few days' time.
On Saturday, what time?
Saturday between 12 and 4 o'clock. And we have all the risk assessment done, all the permission granted by the authority. There is no need for fear, everything done clearly.
And the Sri Lankan High Commission, where is that in London? Where's the nearest tube stop?
Tube station is what is called Paddington.
Paddington. Okay.
Yeah, Paddington.
It's near Paddington Station.
Yeah,
I haven't been. I have been there in the past, but not for a long time, so I've forgotten where it was. But so it's near Paddington.
To Hyde Park, and if you come there, and it's a very easy. I think even in our flyers we mentioned all the tube station nearest one, and also we given the address.
Maybe somebody who's watching this, you guys, if you can Google where the Sri Lankan High Commission is in London, and leave it in the comments so that I can read it out later. So that I can give this protest a plug. Who will be speaking? Who will be speaking there?
people, we will speak in different languages. Myself, I will speak in Tamil and also in Arabic, and plus in Tamil language, what is called the English language and Sinhalese language. Even we want to use some European languages, inshallah. And we want to give the message to the Sri Lankan Muslim. Number one, you don't need to fear. Number one, you need to take the fear out of your heart, because you lost everything. When we lose the properties, we never hurted this much. But when we lose our rights for burial, we hurted so much. So this is the last option we can talk. And
what are people telling you? I mean, do you know anybody personally that has suffered this humiliating, or their loved ones have suffered this humiliating exit? What are Sri Lankan Muslims telling you about this situation?
And I talk to two families. It's very hard to talk to them. Number one, I just listening to the crying only. So I think this is for every Muslim, they can feel it. And how, like if the same situation come to my family, I can feel it, how this one hard. And even the people are just, I did not see my father or mother's face, and I couldn't reach before burial, how much you feel. And this is not that same feeling. This is harsh than 100 times harsh, because, and this is going to be ever until I die. So this is the way all the families are feeling. I think this is no words to explain to the people or condolence given to them, and only inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And also we need to say, even the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through so many hardships. So we know this history. We need to be patient. Same time, we need to take some action. Especially the action is enjoying the good, forbidding the evil. When we forbidding the evil, this is better for humanity, not just better for the Muslim. This is the message we need to give to the Sri Lankan population also. Even if the Buddhist comes, what we are saying, you look at the country very, very, if you look sharply, last 10 years is gone very decline. You sold one part to the Chinese and another part to the American, another part to the India. And also this climate, they want to hide, and behind, they were covering everything behind Islamophobia and Islam. And also, I want to tell you, as you mentioned recently, I think in this discussion about the Rohingya Muslims situation, and the same principle they are trying to apply in Sri Lanka. So this is the reason the community outside, and especially the Bangladesh near to us, Pakistan near to us, even in India and South India, Muslims, very large numbers, they are near to us. We need to discuss with them also. They need to raise the voice against this cruel discrimination against the minorities. And the last 30 years war, and the Tamil was targeted, even that time, many Muslims, they are spoken out. And the same time, and the Tamils are speaking out now at the moment on behalf of Muslims. So many Tamil diaspora people.
We need to internationalize this.
Us.
Sheikh, I have many questions for you, but I think instead of me asking you questions, we might take a few comments, and maybe you can just jump in if you have anything to say. So I don't want to read out comments that I've already read out, so Mohammed says, yes, sorry, that's already been read out. Let me just go a little bit further on. Just bear with me for a minute. So here we do have an address. So Hussein has helpfully put the address, which is 13 Hyde Park Gardens, Tyburnia. Not sure where that is. London, W2 2LU, United Kingdom. So it's near Hyde Park somewhere. So if you just Google Sri Lankan High Commission and you get down there, inshallah, if you can, for 12 p.m. on Saturday, I think that will be really appreciated. We can't solve the situation in Sri Lanka necessarily, but we can take some action, as the Sheikh said. So let me read out some comments. Sorry, one second. So Mohammed says, unable to do a second PCR check. What is a PCR check? What is he referring to? As authorities do not permit it, as all COVID tests in Sri Lanka are actually only 70% accurate. I think he's saying that some of the people that have been cremated didn't even have COVID, including Muslims. Fazlan says, can't we take any action to stop forced cremation of Muslims? Fazmin says it's clearly discrimination against the Muslim minority. Sabina says, are there links between the BJP and the Sri Lankan government that are catalyzing this situation? I don't think there are. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are there links between the Sri Lankan government and the BJP? They do get on, don't they, India and Sri Lanka at the moment?
The sister is partially very correctly she pointed, because in Sri Lanka, the east part of Sri Lanka, there are Tamil, some of the elements of BJP party ideas are coming, and especially against the Muslim, there are time to times some leaflets are spreading out in the villages. And even 2 points I can mention. One thing came from the east part, and no, what is called slaughter of the cows. This is came
Yes.
from the Hindu party. And also there was a one national school, Hindu college. There were 5 or 6 sisters went to teach. They were used to wearing the hijab and the jilbab, but one day the parents came out, and they protest against these teachers, because they don't want to allow these teachers coming to school and teach with the jilbab and the hijab, not the niqab, the jilbab. So
and just to
yeah,
explain
this
to the viewers
can say.
that I think there's a ban on cow meat, isn't there, in Sri Lanka now, and effectively that effectively impoverishes Muslims to a large extent, because they're the ones that they're the butchers, etc. So again, it was a subtle or not so subtle attack against Muslims, camouflaged as something else.
And one correction, they did not ban the cow meat eating, but they burn many places. They can't slaughter the cows. Still permission, but they want to control it.
Yeah, and cow meat can still be imported, I believe, as well. So Five Pillars is doing great work. Jazakallah khair in the awakening of this beautiful ummah, which is a sleeping giant. May Allah bless you and keep you steadfast, inshallah. Ameen. Fizza says, what is taking place in Sri Lanka will never stop until we raise our voices as a global ummah and send our support in whatever way we can. Our mosques need to give their support, and the contact needs to be upped. I'll second that, because obviously now we're quite fixated on what's going on in France, which is very near to us, naturally, I suppose, and perhaps also in Austria and other places. But the focus isn't so much on Sri Lanka. But I must admit, whenever we do anything on Sri Lanka on Five Pillars, I've been quite surprised. We get a lot of traction. I know that there are a lot of Sri Lankan Muslims in this country, but I do feel that generally, I guess because maybe most British Muslims are either Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Arab, they don't know Sri Lanka so well. But I urge that has to change. There is a massive 2 million strong Muslim community in Sri Lanka, and you must kind of show solidarity with your Muslim brothers. So Lancaster Gate apparently is the nearest tube station. Jazakallah khair for that. Is Roshan? Yeah, I am on social. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. My Facebook is partly private, but my Twitter is completely open. So that's at RM Saleh. Hyde Park Gardens is the address. I'm not sure what that is. So that's just the Google. That's just the Google link for the embassy. Mohammed says, "Do we know the people, so-called the technical committee, as government seems to be staking that they are helpless to act independent of this committee?" I don't understand that. Do you understand what that tweet means? What that message means?
Yes. What the government they did, like they passed the ball to someone. What they did, they set up a technical committee. They said, we don't know when the technical committee given the permission to bury, and we will decide.
All right, okay. So they're just shifting the blame on somebody. Yeah, so they don't want to take a decision, but they're blaming other people. That's quite Sri Lankan, isn't it? Because Sri Lankans don't like delivering bad news, do they? I've noticed that trait. So they say, "Oh no, it's somebody else. It's somebody else's fault." Mohammed Asif says, "Do protests really make a difference? I mean, for instance, the Islamophobic cartoons created mass protests, but what I see is every time they press the button, we react to it. Isn't it better to respond?" Would you like to address that point? Do protests make a difference?
Yeah, what I want to say, as a Muslim, we need to understand the problem. Even if I'm living in abroad as a diaspora, I need to understand what is the problem, real problem it is in Sri Lanka. And I want to educate this community in Sri Lanka, not only Muslim, all other people also. the same thing, even the people are here, like you mentioned, the Pakistani and other Asian Muslim crowd and Arab crowd, they should understand what is the real problem happening in all over the world, especially the people who are minority, because and the minority people always thinking, okay, the majority Muslim countries, they're going to give us hand, but this is the way. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, when they keep silence, and this is not going to help, even psychologically, we're going to go
Yeah.
down.
And I think international pressure, I think Sri Lanka is not a powerful country. It's still quite a weak country. So international pressure could have some effect. I mean, on China, you could argue that international pressure won't have any effect on China because it's such a rich, powerful country in every single sense. But Sri Lanka needs the rest of the world, doesn't it? And I think even today, a British minister wrote to the Sri Lankan government. Maybe not a minister, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but there was some pressure from the United Kingdom authorities on the Sri Lankans, and they perhaps will listen to that.
And if you can repeat again, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm just saying that international pressure could work on the Sri Lankan authorities, right?
Yeah, definitely it will work. And I think definitely it will work. And also many Sri Lankans are working in Middle East. So even all the time they have the fear. If the Muslim countries decided something against, our people who are working, and this is going to be very huge loss for economy. So that
Yes.
is one side. And also like a tea and the garments, all the export side goes to the Muslim countries. And this is also another side. And especially Pakistan is a very close ally to Sri Lankan government. So that is another side I want to tell
Imran
to
Khan, you want
everybody.
Imran Khan to talk about this?
Yes,
Let's try and make
everybody.
that happen.
If you are here to convince the authority in Pakistan to speak on behalf of Muslim community, that is the best things to do because Imran Khan and he can do it.
Yeah, okay. So Chile says the fact that networks like Five Pillars isn't the mainstream is the reason why there's a global hysteria against Islam. Mainstream media is a big enabler when it comes to spreading hate against Muslims. Usman says, what's the economy of Sri Lanka like? Are Muslim scapegoats? I think definitely they are. The economy isn't too strong as well. Fazmin says, Sheikh, what is the opinion of all Ceylon Jamiat al-Alam ulama about forced cremating in Sri Lanka? Yeah, does Sri Lanka have does it have a council of ulama who have pronounced on this topic? Sheikh, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I did not do anything. Is it muted?
Oh, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. And it is before 1948, it was established, it was powerful in the body. And all the Muslim Ummah in Sri Lanka, they are listening to one, the body, that is the Jamiatul Ulama. But
Okay.
unfortunately, and we see sometime we need to stand firmly what is our, what is called the place to reach, aim to reach in this moment, especially when it's come to after they attack the halal food, when they attack the hijab and the niqab, and these all the things they need to address clearly. What is the argument we're going to talk to, especially the Muslim? How do you tackle with these things? And also the second, you need to talk to the Sinhalese Buddhist people. If you don't talk, this is going to build the doubt over and over. So this area, I think the sister or the brother who asked, yes, it is very important. We need to discuss with the Jamiatul Ulama also.
Okay, Sheikh Mohammed Ismail, I really appreciate you taking the time out to explain the situation in Sri Lanka to us today. And inshallah, I'll see you on Saturday. So inshallah, I will try and get down there. And I believe you're one of the speakers. I might try and say a word or two myself, if you permit me, if I'm welcome to talk for a few minutes. And yeah, so Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I'll give you the final word, Sheikh.
And also, I would like to thank all the audience, Alhamdulillah. And your work, inshallah, continue because the minorities' voice is raised in the Western world is very important. And I think the last 20 years, we try to reach it through the media. And slowly and slowly, we picked now, inshallah. I think wonderful work, inshallah. May Allah reward you well. And also, finally, I need to remind everybody, inshallah, This is, like a one ummah, because something we need to feel, because the Muslims of Sri Lanka and the Muslims of UK all are brothers and by belief. So you need to make the dua for us, and also this is the important part. The second part is, even if you can share something to raise this awareness towards the Muslim ummah, inshallah, it will be help for our cause, inshallah. Be on Saturday, inshallah, participate with our protest, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for having me, inshallah.
Okay. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay. So that was Sheikh Mohammed Ismail. So I'm going to move on from the Sri Lankan issue. There's something else I want to say before I leave you guys, but I'm just going to wrap up on Sri Lanka. So, Sri Lanka is close to my heart, a country that I've tried to go back to at least every few years since I was a child. An amazing country, a beautiful country. I've traveled extensively around the world. It is still the most beautiful country I've ever been to in my life. And generally, when I was growing up, relations between Muslims and other religions were quite good. There were always been problems, but it's nothing like it is today, where we have a rampant Buddhist nationalism. The Muslims of Sri Lanka are powerless. When I talk to my relatives back home and my friends back home in Sri Lanka, they can't speak up. They're relying on us to speak up. And I'll be quite honest. I'm kind of I haven't spoken up myself enough about this. We tried to cover it on 5 Pillars, but personally, I don't feel I've done a good enough job trying to amplify the voices of my relatives back home who are suffering, and generally, Sri Lankans who are living in fear, really not knowing what will happen to them from one day to the next and what the future is for them in that beautiful country. So really, it is up to us to amplify their voices, to educate ourselves about what is happening in Sri Lanka. And perhaps we can do that, even if it's just to come along and listen and educate ourselves on Saturday outside the Sri Lankan High Commission from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. And I think the nearest tube was Paddington or Hyde Park or something like that. Inshallah, you can Google it for yourselves. But I don't want to end this show without talking about 2 other really big hot topic issues that have happened in the last week. The first of them is France, because the French government has officially dissolved the nation's main anti-Islamophobia organization, the Collective Against Islamophobia in France. The Interior Minister has accused the organization of having, for several years, consistently conducted Islamist propaganda. The CCIF says the move exposes the French state's brazen hypocrisy in advocating free speech while denying Muslims the freedom to speak and organize. So we go from Sri Lanka, where Muslims are under pressure, where Muslims are marginalized, disenfranchised, discriminated against, to France, where exactly the same thing has happened. Believe it or not, they have shut down the biggest Muslim charity in France, the biggest Muslim charity in France, and the only and major Islamophobia, anti-Islamophobia organization in France. You really couldn't make it up, but it's true. And I tell you what, I think we're going to see a flood of French Muslims coming over the channel, seeking refuge, seeking political asylum from the nonsense that is going on in that country, the pure fascism of the French state, Emmanuel Macron, who is weaponizing Islamophobia, who is literally down in the polls. So therefore, he looks for a scapegoat. Presidential election coming up in a year or 2, and he's going for the Muslims. And boy, is it popular amongst the right wing in fascist France. Let's go from France to the UK and a story that I've been covering personally for the last few weeks, and that is the sad tale of Shukri Abdi. A coroner has ruled that the drowning of the Bury schoolgirl in 2019 was an accidental death. Joanne Kersley found that another girl who was with her in the River Irwell when she drowned, who we could only identify for legal reasons as child 1, had no intention to harm her. The coroner said that she hoped Shukri's family would now focus on the happy memories of a beautiful young girl. Now, immediately after that verdict, there was an immediate response from the lawyers and the Justice for Shukri Abdi campaign. And I'm going to have that in a little second. Yeah, so here is Mas Salim from the Justice for Shukri Abdi campaign with her reaction to that verdict of accidental death.
The verdict of accidental death brings to a close a painful chapter for the family, one which has been made even more painful due to the failure of all the institutions that were meant to protect Shukri. 17 months ago, this campaign, Justice for Shukri campaign, which is myself, Mas Salim, Shabnam Kulsoom, Eva, and Abdul Aziz, was created in the wake of the tragic death of our beloved young sister, Shukri Abdi. Since then, her mother Zamzam Arab Ture and her family have faced what can only be described as a never-ending nightmare as she demanded answers and the truth of her beloved daughter's last moments on this earth. This vulnerable refugee mother, whose daughter was taken from her in incredibly dubious circumstances, was left in limbo with unanswered questions and her own trauma to deal with, all the while trying to support her other children come to terms with what had happened to their older sister. Her family protected her the moment she stepped onto UK soil, but sadly those authorities who should have protected Shukri Abdi categorically and without question failed her. The facts are now firmly out there for the world to see that this was not merely a tragic accident. This campaign was set up to protect and provide immediate support for the family and to fight alongside the legal team to ensure that the truth of Shukri's death was exposed and to ensure that no family ever has to experience the obstacles this mother had to face to simply get to the truth surrounding the events that led to her beautiful child's death. This was and has only ever been our objective. It was only through the determination and persistence of the family and this campaign that a deeper investigation was secured, and only through widespread calls for action that we have got here today. The investigation of Shukri Abdi's death and subsequent investigations by the school, police and other local authorities have come to represent yet another example of the institutional racism riddled throughout this country.
Okay, that was Mas Salim of the Justice for Shukri Abdi campaign. I just want to say a few words about Shukri Abdi. It would be remiss of me not to do that today, even though the show has been about Sri Lanka. I was in the court nearly every day, and I was there for the verdict as well. I think that personally, the judge, the coroner, has expressed her verdict of accidental death, and that child one, who was with Shukri in the water when she drowned, had no intention to harm Shukri. I think that there is still a lot of doubt over this verdict. Three things spring to mind. Ultimately, child one threatened to kill Shukri Abdi on their way to the water. The judge ruled that she was joking. Child one, who had a duty of care towards Shukri because she could swim and she knew Shukri couldn't swim, led Shukri into deep water. That in itself says a lot. The third thing is that she probably pushed, in the judge's words, Shukri away when they were getting into trouble in the water, with Shukri clinging onto her and on top of her. When she knew she was getting into trouble, she pushed Shukri away, probably, said the coroner, and swam back to the riverbank. When she got to the riverbank, as Shukri was drowning, she and another girl laughed. The coroner said that was a childish reaction and they didn't appreciate what was happening. So on 3 occasions, the coroner has given child one the benefit of the doubt. Would that coroner have given the benefit of the doubt to a white girl in similar circumstances? Maybe she would have. I'm just posing the question. I'm not accusing the coroner of anything. Would the media have covered this case from day one if it had been a pretty 12-year-old white girl rather than a 12-year-old Muslim girl who wore the hijab? Because I tell you what, the media hardly covered that case at all. From day one, they were not with the family. They were not with Mberi. Local news might have covered it, but it wasn't covered nationally. I was at the trial nearly every day. There were about 3 journalists there, okay? On the day of the verdict, there were about 20 journalists there, but you don't just turn up on the last day to report the result. You cover the process as well. And for me, this simply would not have happened if we were talking about a white girl. But when it's a Muslim, when it's a black 12-year-old Muslim girl, wears the hijab, refugee, you know, we pay it scant attention. We do little snippets on the news. It was amplified on social media with the Black Lives Matter movement, but quite frankly, that seems like a bit of a fad to me. It came and it went. You know, celebrities retweeted her name and it went viral. But have they followed it up? No, they haven't followed it up. So that is the conclusion I come to. A very sad case, and I think the family are going to appeal this verdict. They're going to look at a judicial review. It may well go to the Supreme Court, all the way to the Supreme Court. And I think they may well sue the police as well, because they're very angry at the school, who they believe didn't respond adequately to constant complaints about Shukri being bullied. And I think they're also very angry at the police, who they don't believe conducted a proper investigation. So let's see what's happened. I'm going to end this show with reading out your comments because they're still flowing in. Sabina says, is boycott part of the answer? That's boycotting Sri Lanka. Kaz says, Imran Khan may talk in private like he does with China. Pathetic. Gustic says, is there a place that Muslims have in government, or like a national minority in a government, which is guaranteed? I'm not sure if there is, to be honest. There's a sad answer to that. AE says, the Islamic Ummah must be more involved in politics to retain their rights. Mohammed says, since the COVID-19 crisis erupted, Sri Lanka has been the only country in the world to insist on victims being cremated. And last week, Sri Lanka's Supreme Court rejected petitions by Muslims who claim this rule impinges on the fundamental rights of the island's Muslim minority. And Mohammed gives quite a detailed, I'm going to read out the shorter tweets, Mohammed, no offense, but I'm going to read out some shorter tweets. So yeah, the Minister of Health of Sri Lanka is wiser than the WHO. That's an ironic comment there, I think, from Mohammed. Usman says, what would be justice for Shukri? Should the kids get locked up? Well, I think the family wants a verdict on lawful killing on the basis of gross negligence, manslaughter. I don't think they're asking for anything to happen to the child who was in the water with Shukri. They realize that she is a child, ultimately, a 13-year-old, I believe, or a teenager anyway. I'm not sure exactly about her age, similar age to Shukri. But they're not asking her to be strung up or to be locked in jail for the rest of her life or demonized for the rest of her life. I think what the mother wants is to know exactly what happened to her child and for the truth to come out. That's what she wants more than anything else. She believes she knows what happened. She believes that Shukri was coerced to a certain extent against her will from school to the city center, to Child One's home, and then to the river. Although I must mitigate that a little bit by saying that at times along that route, she did seem happy and content. So there's conflicting information. But it does seem that she was coerced to a certain extent anyway. And the mother believes that ultimately she was led into that water very irresponsibly, that she was bullied in school, and the police didn't investigate properly. So I guess an acknowledgement of all that would be justice from the family's point of view. Heartbroken, Redview says, heartbroken over the death of the 20-year-old newborn baby yesterday. What is worse is that health officials insisted on cremating the infant's body against parents' wishes due to the infant having tested positive for COVID-19 only via antigen testing. Both parents, however, tested negative. Reports state that attempts to do PCR testing were apparently denied, and the health authorities solely depended on the less reliable antigen testing. What is the sin this newborn infant committed? Nothing whatsoever. Allahu Akbar. Thank you for filling me in on that. I was unaware of that detail. So the viewers, you guys are teaching me stuff and educating me as we go along as well. I heard the kids admitted it, says Usman. This is the Shukri Abdi case. No, not really. There were 5 children who gave evidence, and the evidence was conflicting. Gustic says, where the other Muslims are, I'm not sure what that means. Please save the Sri Lankan Muslims, Abu Hibba says. And the comments are coming in. but I'm going to end it there. So today we've been talking about Sri Lanka, and I also mentioned the dire situations in France and Sri Lanka. From now on, inshallah, I will try and keep this. I promised to myself that I would try and do this every week. I have failed in the last 2 weeks because of other commitments, but inshallah, I will see you on Wednesday, sometime after Isha prayers. Probably we'll have a regular time of 6 o'clock now because the prayer times aren't conflicting with the live stream. So that's it from me. Roshan Mohammed Salih, this was The Big Picture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.